that's on there. Alright folks, so I'm just out here working away on the forge body for the forge that I'm building here. And I've been working with this little arc weld AC-100 welder for probably 3 or 4 years now. I thought I'd take this opportunity to talk about welding with one of these little machines. Now I do have a lot of welding experience. You wouldn't know it from looking at these welds, but this thing is hard to work with, to say the least. So this is a little, well the actual output it says is a 70 amp output. I don't know if it actually hits 70 amp on the welding arc, probably not. And the long and short of it is, anyways, I picked this thing up 50 bucks used 4 or 5 years ago, and I have done a hell of a lot of work with this thing. It's obviously not gonna get any kind of commercial type structural welding done for you, but as a hobby machine, if you just picked up one of these little 110 volt stick welders, a lot of people like to call it arc welding. It's SMAW, shielded metal arc welding. All welding is arc welding. This just uses a stick electrode. When you're using a MIG, it's still arc welding. You just have a wire feed versus a manual feed of the electrode stick. Now that that's out of the way, these things are hard to work with. When I first got this, I could not figure out for the life of me how to get an arc going with one of these and lay a bead. It's very, very difficult. So I'm going to share the few tips and tricks that I've learned over the years running this thing on how you can get a weld going and get some small projects done around the house, whatever you have. I've made a wood stove out of a propane tank with this thing. I made my 12 gauge pipe shotgun frame with this. Lots of little repairs for other people over the years. I made frame rails for my buddy's trailer probably 3 or 4 years ago that are still holding on there solid. Like I'm pretty sure you could pick the damn trailer up by these rails, and I buzzed it all on with this thing. So the first thing I'm going to say is electrode type. Forget 70-18. You are not going to have a good time running 70. Maybe if you preheat the rods, if you had a rod oven, it would work a little better. I never tried that, but just cold 70-18, you're supposed to preheat it. They're supposed to be dry and they're supposed to be warm. Cold 70-18 electrodes out of this thing, it's not happening. It just doesn't get hot enough. It doesn't have a jam. So you're going to have a lot easier time with 60-11 or 60-13. I've just been running 60-11 consistently over the last couple of years, and it's messy, it's spattery, it doesn't always do exactly what you want it to do. The 70-18 is designed to be a flary, hot weld that burns off paint and rust, and it's kind of self-prepping for the joint. So 60-11, 60-13, I don't know if I said 70-18 or 60-11 there, but 60-11 is a self-prepping rod with a lot of flare, very messy, but it will run in one of these little welders. So I'm going to zoom in my work area here. I've just got a couple little patches to put on the bottom of this forge body to plug a couple of holes, and I'll show you how I strike an arc. Remember that, it's very important, strike an arc with this thing and get a weld going. So running 60-11 electrodes, 3 32nd diameter. You're not getting 1/8 in this, forget about it. 3 32s is the biggest electrode you're going to get. So I'm going to move you guys over here. I'll show you my work area. Hopefully you can tell what's going on with the weld and I don't burn the image sensor out of the camera. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is your grounding clamp. You guys can't see it right now. It's up on a post. But similar to the area I have cleaned here, you need a good ground connection for this little guy to work. So I've got the post cleaned off with the grinder the same way where my grounding clamp is. Generally you want to keep that as close to your work as possible. The second thing with these little machines is the bigger, more powerful welders, they'll just blow the rod apart. So you can get away with tapping an arc, especially when the shielding on the outside, that's what this flux is here. It makes a shielding gas as it burns on the outside of the rod. On bigger rods, that'll kind of encompass the metal tip, and you'll have a hard time getting an arc going because it's not making electrical contact there. So you see a lot of guys tap it like that. The bigger machines will blow through that. You'll get an arc going generally. What you should be doing, regardless as to what machine you're using. I don't want to tell you how to weld. If you like tapping, it works for you, fine. This little guy, you're probably going to hate doing that. It's just going to stick every time. You'll never ever get an arc going. So you want to strike an arc, just like you strike a match. Just very, very gently. And with this thing, I mean, you get your hands braced up and you just want to ever so gently try and flick an arc. So I've got this clamped down. Preparation is very important. You see I've ground all the rust. Even with 6011, these little welders just don't have the jam to get that going and burn through the rust. So you give it all the help you can get. Clean the rust off. These surfaces are both prepped here. And I'm just putting these plates on the corner. They're not, all they have to do is stop dirt from falling and these sparks from falling out the bottom of this, so it's not critical at all. I'm gonna try and lay a nice little bead right across the back here. You guys probably won't be able to see anything. And I say nice little bead within the limits of what this machine can do. So we'll fire up. And I've got this thing maxed out. I've got the shunt, it's a mechanical shunt inside it. Whatever you have, you're probably going to want it on the highest setting. Especially if you're trying to run 330 seconds. So I'll put my helmet down now. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Here we go. Now you see, so I struck that big arc there. Sometimes if you're having a hard time, just give it a good drag, clean that surface off so it's making contact again, and then try again with smaller strikes. When you start getting that flare, start moving to where you want to start working, start your bead. And we're welding. Rod angle is very important. You want to make sure you got this thing pointed right into the corner you're trying to join. I had to reposition my hands there. I like to get my face right down in the smoke. Such a small arc, it's hard to see. So anyways, there you have it. That's pretty much one whole electrode. 6011 laid in there. I'm just gonna tack the other side down here, pull this clamp off, and I won't touch this. I'll clean it off and show you what the weld looks like after. All right, that's tacked down on that side. Just as a side note here, guys, this is not necessarily light material. You can't really see here. Most of this plate is like 3/16. It's not super light stuff. It's heavier than 10 gauge. So you can do pretty substantial work with this little machine if you've got some welding experience and you spend a bit of time learning how she works. So, it's not ideal. I mean, there's inclusions and stuff in here. It doesn't matter how good it looks like it's laying beads sometimes. I very rarely have good, consistent, clean inclusion-free welds with this thing. But that's just 6011 and using a really underpowered machine to do stuff it's probably not meant to do. But I've done this whole project here with this little welder, and it's gonna probably last forever. I mean, I don't see, it's pretty heavy duty. All right, folks, I hope those quick tips helped you with your whatever little $50, 110 volt stick machine you have. There's tons of these out there. There are all sorts of varieties. They're probably a little different, so some of my techniques might not work with your machine. Your machine might work better than mine. It's hard to say, but you can get work done with these if you have, especially the older ones. They're kind of bomb-proof. They're really simple, and if you spend a bit of time with it, farting around, 6011 or 6013 electrodes, no bigger than 3/32 inch diameter, and crank her right up. Try and use heavier gauge extension cords if you can. Use shorter extension cords, that'll help as well. And if you're ever having a lot of problems with these things, you've got an older one with a mechanical shunt, pull the cover off. I just did this with mine today. Pop the cover off it, blow the dust out. It'll help prevent overheating and shorts and stuff like that can happen, and you'll get a bit of a smoother, cleaner arc out of it, so that'll help too. I got to get back to finishing this project up. I got a bit more welding to do, a couple of cuts, get an axle on here, all sorts of fun stuff. So I hope those tips helped you with whatever you're working on with your welder. Stay safe in the shop, guys. Have fun, and keep working on stuff. We'll see you next time.